Okay. So how was your mains? It went well. How many of you left one or two questions in ethics paper? You didn't leave any question in ethics. Good. Okay. So how many of you have started preparation for interview? You are clueless, like what to start, where to start, how to start.
Should I start?
Huh?
Or should I start?
Should I prepare for interview? Yes, yes. So the doubt will be there. The doubt will always be there. Whether should I prepare? Like some of you might have written super core entrance. Some of you wanted to enroll to YLM, IPM and other courses. So in interview, what happens, right? So first we have to understand UPSC interview is totally different compared to any other interview, especially in the private sector or even in other government exams that you might have attended so far. So this is totally different. So now, like last 2 to 3 years, not 2 to 3 years, like 3 to 4 years, I am witnessing a huge change in the way the board is expecting certain traits, certain qualities, certain elements, certain attitude from the candidate who appears in the interview, right? So now again, when after the mains, what students, what candidates, so you can close the door. The candidates again commit the same mistakes that every year most people keep committing. Any idea what are those mistakes? So when it comes to interview, like what is your perception, like what do you have in your mind when you think of UPSC interview? Some of you have given interview, some of you will give interview this year. So when you think of UPSC interview, what comes to your mind? Drishti videos or huh? What comes to your mind?
They ask us about what you written in our DAF.
Okay. So they will ask you about what you mentioned in DAF. Okay. Then like what is your perception now after writing mains? Some of you might have visualized, right? Some of you might have dreamt about. No, not yet. Giving UPSC interview, you know, what do you have in your mind when you think of UPSC interview? For me, that forms the core of the personality test. Understanding what actually happens, what are their expectations from you, right? Once you understand the actual thing that happens and the depth of it, according to that you should start your preparation, right? The mains, the prelims which you have been through, right, should be de-linked from the interview process, right? People are still in that mode. One of the mistakes that emanates from these two phases is that still the focus is on acquiring knowledge, information, right? Still even now we want to study current affairs, even now we want to go back and revise current affairs, then acquire as much as knowledge and then try to frame questions on them, try to be good in factual knowledge. But the actual interview doesn't focus much on it. What happens is that there are factual interviews and there are analytical interviews. The interviews which give you broad set of questions where the in-depth understanding of any issue or your own life, your own job experience, your hobbies, interests, achievements, scholarship, whatever it is, your own understanding of whatever you have mentioned and whatever things that are happening through around you are tested in depth through broad analytical questions. But there are set of interview which are like quiz like, right? So they take factual turn mainly because of the fault of the candidate. It is not the fault of the board that your questions are factual in nature, right? In an ordinary, in a day-to-day life conversation, if you have talked to people, if you have interacted with, I think you have interacted with people who are more intellectual than you, and people bit less intellectual than you, and people who match your wavelength in terms of thinking, in terms of your knowledge, right? What are the differences you find when you, let's say you are talking with more intellectual personality? What is the experience like when you talk with somebody who matches your knowledge level? What is the experience like? And then when you talk to somebody who is not as knowledgeable as you, what is the experience? The first experience, how will it be?
So if they're intellectually better than us,
Hmm.
sometimes they feel, are we wasting their time?
Okay.
If we are a little
Feel intimidated. Hmm.
but if there's intellectually lower than us, we feel we are wasting our time.
Yeah. Right. So if they are more intellectually sound, you feel like you are wasting their time, and if you think that you are superior intellectually, someone else is wasting your time. Okay. Then what else? Somebody is more intelligent than you. Right. What are your expectations? Okay, good. So you want to learn more from them by talking to them, by asking them questions, by exchanging, by trying to elicit more views, opinions from them. Then, like how? Okay, that is experience. Like how does it feel? Like when you are talking with somebody who is more knowledgeable than you, but at the same time they are more humble, right? More grounded, and in whatever they are saying, they are to the point, no nonsense at all. So they are not coloring their words with metaphors, similes, any figures of speech, nothing. Straight to the point, and their views are more balanced, objective. Right? How does it feel when you hear things like that? You mostly agree with them. So you listen with all the attention, all the focus, and then you tend to agree with them when it is more objective, and when it is that opinion is given with humility, and at the same time they will have the confidence. Most of them will have the confidence, right? But the opposite of it. So when you think that you are intelligent and you are sound in terms of your perception about the world, knowledge about the world, your views about the world, the perspectives, everything, and then the other candidate who is talking to you is not that sound, right? The views are obvious, right? The very generic ones, they are not actually contributing anything to you, right? Because you already know the things. You are not contributing to anything to further the conversation, to take forward the conversation so that they can show some interest in what you are saying. As he said, what will they feel? They will feel like he's wasting our time. So what will you do with them?
So the close friends, we need to tolerate them.
Yeah.
We need to
So you want to get rid of them as soon as possible. I mean, of course, if you have friends, you will tolerate. But in UPSC, these two things happen. But the first one doesn't happen because you are at any point of time you are not intellectually superior to the board, right? So the maximum what you can do, you can match their expectations. You can match their thinking. You can give some new perspective based on a wide reading, which they'll be able to easily appreciate, right? Easily comprehend, make sense of it, and then frame their own counter opinion or alternative opinion on what you are saying. So that much intellectual capacity they will have. They'll be able to do that so quickly, right? So when the things match, they will appreciate, and they would want to have more and more conversation with you. They will show more interest. And in fact, what happens is that when you start matching their expectations, when you bring the depth in the conversation, they also start respecting you, right? So they also start respecting you if it is your opinions are combined with the confidence factor, right? The humility factor and the honesty factor, right? Intellectual honesty is in the interview, in the notification they have mentioned intellectual integrity, right? So moral integrity as well as intellectual integrity are the two traits that are being tested. In addition to clear and precise exposition, other things, there are so many other things. So they not only respect you, in a way you will get indications in then and there that they are showing inclination that they want to actually select you. So there is another category. Now there are like 1 or 2 members with the other category, the other spectrum. They do drama. They encourage them further, right? These people who do not come with good depth, they encourage them to talk more, to reveal themselves more and more, right? And they appreciate even those generic views also. And they will, in the end, they will tell, we had wonderful conversation with you, we loved your answers, something, they, 1 or 2 members do that also. So these candidates are unaware that what is happening, they actually believe it, that they were actually really good, right? Again, that is again because lack of awareness about, what is expected from them in the interview. Now, when you go to the interview, now you have to elevate your level of thinking, your level of preparedness, your level of understanding of the issues, right? The way you present in front of them should match their intellectual curiosity. You should satiate their intellectual curiosity, match their intellectual soundness, right? So now you have to, I keep telling every year the preparation for interview should be as good as you prepare for the mains in terms of intensity, in terms of the time you give for every subject, right? So how will you start that journey, towards, making yourself, every year like I find like 3-4 candidates, so whom I tell like outrightly I will tell, so less than 200 impossible. They won't believe because they don't have, it might be their first UPSC interview, they will not believe because they think, interview is very subjective, I might still make certain mistakes. So through the course of multiple marks, we eliminate those mistakes, some mistakes which are, visible, and then we focus on the substance of the answer, right? Through their answers, through their attitude, through their behavior over the course of 1 or 2 months. So I'll be able to tell them actually there is no way, right? You are going to score less than 200. So what makes me give that verdict to certain number of people that this is the, and there will be certain people I find it extremely difficult. So when I am saying this, I find it, when I am focusing on myself, because I did mock interviews of 400 candidates last year, all one-on-one, right? Before that 535 candidates, because of COVID it got postponed, so there was so much of time, so I could do more number then. So I had come across various types of candidates. So there are certain candidates, I find it difficult to tell myself if they can ever go above 190 or 170 or 180 plus, right? But there is always a way forward, from 170 to 200 plus, there is always a way forward. The thing is, the perception about the interview itself is wrong for most of the people. They still keep focusing on the content part, not on the personality part. So for me, the journey towards scoring 200 plus starts with the focus on your personality, right? So when we talk about personality, there are various traits, right? So which should aid you in scoring those kind of marks. Can you give what are the traits that you should have in towards scoring, especially when it comes to South Karnataka people? So we have this communication problem, right? More than communication problem, we have this humility problem. It is in abundance, right? Karnataka. So because you are more humble, sometimes it is misconstrued as submissiveness, right? So it is taken as this candidate lacks confidence, and because humility, what it does is that it makes you soft spoken, right? You are not like, especially it happened mainly because of COVID. You had to wear mask you had to wear, the shield, right? So last two interviews, I noticed very humble people whom I knew, they were actually good in terms of other qualities, were not able to score good marks because of that problem. So you need to be more assertive. There should be dum in in your voice. It's not loudness; it is assertiveness. When you speak, people in the room should hear. They should pay attention to what you are saying, right? So it happens through both assertiveness and through the quality of your answer, right? So how will you bring those kind of qualities, traits? Is it possible to do in next 2 to 3 months?
Sir, I have a doubt on how do you assess the level where you're not more assertive and you're not less. I think that's where the core.
See, again, being assertive, when you will be assertive when you have conviction in what you are saying, right? And you will have conviction in what you are saying when you have actually prepared beforehand. You have thought about that issue beforehand, and you know what you are saying. You are clear about what you want to convey, right? So you will lack that assertiveness, conviction, if it is something for the first time you are facing, and you are taking your time to process your thoughts, organize them, and try to give shape to them, right? So that is why the best preparation is for this interview is you have to think about every possible issue, every possible question that can arise from your DAF beforehand, right? So again, that is in terms of giving shape to those thoughts. Now you should know, is the thought, whatever you thought about, right, the idea, you should be aware whether it is going to further the conversation. Is it enough to not to impress them, but again make them more curious, right? Match their expectation and further the conversation. So you should be aware of that. For example, why I am stressing on this point is in essay we see people writing Rajaram Mohan Roy, right? The example, people keep writing that because their level of preparedness or awareness tells them that that is the best example they know, right? Like in the moment of writing examination, that example comes to your mind and you write it, and for a moment you may be knowing it's not a good example, but you still think that it's decent enough. Leave Rajaram Mohan Roy. Like if you want to give better example, you might know an anecdote from ISRO between what happened APJ Abdul Kalam and Satish Dhawan. So and you think that you only know this anecdote, right? So now that is where the problem arises. So this is competition, there are like again thousands others who have done similar research, similar stories they have read. Now you have to either go deeper into that, or you have to diversify your views and the thoughts about those things. So for that interview, again we have a strategy for that. It starts with your hobbies and interests. So that is your first interface, right? When before you entering the interview room, what they have in front of you is your paper version of you, right? So they haven't seen you, they haven't met you before, maybe exceptions are, I don't know. So they haven't talked to you before, right? So they have this bad looking photo of yours in the DAF, right? Here you have mustache, there you don't have in the photo. You have glass in the real, there you don't have glass. So it has given like rough visualization about who you are, and then the details have given certain idea about who you are. Again, there the biases are possible, right? So in the details, the biases here is that it's human nature, right? If somebody is from 2 IITs and 2 IIMs and they have presented paper in international conference and this and that, little bias will be there, but they won't let that bias affect their judgment at any cost, right? What happens, that bias, what it results is more expectations, right? You have put so much on your DAF, now when you come and sit in front of them, you have to do justice to those expectations. There is no bias in terms of awarding the marks, but if you don't meet the expectations which you have created in the DAF, you are going to be severely punished. So like the two cases I saw last year. So both were from IIT and then IIM B1, IIM A, even I actually noticed. In the course of the mock interview, I told the same, gave the same feedback. The expectation you were creating and the kind of question I am trying to ask, the answers you were given are like, there is mismatch, right? So you were not coming across as somebody who had that kind of intense academic exposure, some kind of all those extracurricular activities. So in your answer, it is not getting reflected, the depth. Say your answers are still, you know, the source is still your notes and all the textbooks and all the current affair material. So I think you have to lift it. So in the end, the same thing happened, like, you know, less than 165 marks, right? So 2 candidates, so 2 girls. So you have to be careful. So when you are filling the DAF, when you put hobby, now education, qualification, work experience, I think work experience you have to fill in DAF too. Education, higher education you have already done, right? Work experience now, higher education you had already, that's what I am. DAF2, higher education and hobbies in DAF2, yeah. So work experience and your basic qualification you have already mentioned in the DAF1. So anyway, even if you want to change, you cannot change. You have to. So that is like there. Now it doesn't matter whether you come from government arts science college or whether you come from Stephens College. It doesn't matter now. Even then, for me, that is the best strategy. Create low expectation, go there and beat their expectations. So that way you will, you know, in a way overwhelm them, in a way impress them more effectively than create more expectation and not live up to that expectation, right? So then in the hobbies and interest, if nothing is there in this area, not much to ask. So what they will do is they will go for hobbies and interest. So the strategy has been to focus on your core interests and areas which can instantly elicit curiosity, interest. So for example, you write, you know, blogging about development economics. So that is your hobby, right? 100% they are interested in talking about development economics. There is no way that they are going to overlook or ignore that particular thing. The logic is they are into that kind of thinking, they are into that kind of deliberations all the time, into that kind of, you know, from the perspective of policy making and everything. So they keep discussing these issues, right? That interest there, it matches with their interest as well. So similarly, last year one boy mentioned healthcare models. He was a doctor, so he mentioned studying about various healthcare models. So definitely they are into health, education, agriculture all the time. So healthcare model, they are curious to know what healthcare models he knows about. What is healthcare model? What are the, you know, ideas he might be having his own healthcare model. So most of the interview revolved around that particular thing. 187, the first interview. 187 is like 193 or 195 plus last year, right? So the reason that they were able to score more marks was that first, that was a genuine hobby also for that person. It was not like cooked up or, you know, fake. So first you have to identify, everyone will have that kind of core interest. If it is not core interest, at least some interest you will have. So see what interests you more from various fields of studies and subjects and disciplines. Choose at least minimum to maximum 3, right? And you think from their perspective, what kind of, the sports, again, it won't elicit much interest, but within sports, if it is an issue, let's say you are a sports person, but somehow you are specialized in, you know, doing like research and reading more about doping in the sports, in general, doping issue in sports, right? Like, or you may be interested in the technological intervention in sports, right? In general, what kind of technologies are brought in various sports, how technology is transforming sports in general, sports persons and sports in general. So it's still a big area, right? So you are trying to know more about them, and that definitely they will ask question. Now they will ask question out of curiosity here. They may not be knowing about it, they may not be having knowledge about it, but definitely when you tell something, they will hear, and from there they will ask another question, right? So that task you have to do, right? The moment you have done that, right, do you have like any sample examples here? Any such interests and hobbies? Something different? What? And? Ham radio. What is ham radio? Your own radio station. Your own radio station. AM, ham radio. Oh, HM, ham radio.
Amateur radio.
Okay.
Technologists can create their own radio station and operate radio.
So you have your own radio station. I mean, okay. So what is the name you have given to that radio station? No name. Okay. So what do you do there? Like what do you discuss?
Nothing is basically it is used during disaster time. Like however the situation may be, the mobile signal can break out, but ham radio signal never.
Now how will you create that signal, ham radio signal?
Like you see the traffic police.
Yeah, walkie-talkies.
That kind of a radio.
Okay.
It is basically used in disaster management.
Mm-hmm. So for that you need devices.
Yeah, a radio station will be there.
Uh-huh.
But now I use a smartphone to operate.
Okay. You have some special software or what?
Yeah, there are software. And
Hmm.
actually, it's a license. I have got my license from Ministry of Communications.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
So only the license holders should operate the radio station.
So what do you do apart from disaster management? Like during disaster, what do you do?
Basically, it is used for communication.
So how to rescue, where they should go seek help.
Yeah.
So those kind of things. Nice. Good. Any others?
Fundamental analysis of stock market. I like reading the reports that the companies publish.
Oh,
So
fundamental analysis of
the stocks.
stock markets. So you read the reports, the
I
annual
also
reports or quarterly reports, like.
But annual is the main one.
So which is the latest report that you?
Sir, I read the report of TB Laboratories, pharmaceutical.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
So they're in the API space, and now the PLI and API has come. So
Hmm.
they've actually showed that.
So the moment you mention the word API, PLI, the interview will take another turn, right? So that immediately evokes interest, right? Now I want to know APIs. What is happening with China? Are we able to manufacture them? What are the ingredients? How are we able to procure them? Has Atmanirbhar done something like I'll go on linking with something and all, right? And then PLI, to what are all the sectors that PLI is applied, what is PLI, is it benefiting the sectors or something like this. So the opinions will start pouring in, and I'm curious basically to know whether you are aware of all the interlinkages, right? So that is how you should actually start preparing. First identify like 2 to 3 core interests, so that can evoke interest in the mind of the interviewer the moment they see DAP. So from there you should start framing these kind of questions, right? So the questions can from psychology to they can get into economics to they can get into history to they can get into geography to they can get into space technology, from space technology to they can get into some kind of business sector, right? From there to sports or whatever it is. So basically you have to weave a web around the keyword that you mentioned here, right? What happens if I am asking him these questions, the another member is noting down important keywords that you have answered. So if they are more interesting than what you have mentioned in the DAF, so they will focus more on the keywords in your answer, right? Again, the keywords are nothing but the key concepts. It's not like jargon or vocabulary, it's the key concepts that you are bringing in your answer. So the moment you mention key concepts or key issues in your answer, so they will be material for other board members. So we have to take it very seriously, the whole interview preparation. Now you know that the mains may be satisfied, may not be satisfied. Even with just 3 marks above the cutoff, you will be able to get a rank if your score is 200 plus in the interview, right? Some rank, for this attempt. I mean, if that is the hopeless situation you are in, the interview can actually save you, rescue you. So it can be made actually possible. The thing is, the way you prepare, is still overpowered by the prelims and mains thinking. So you need to diversify, you need to read, as he said, he said he reads reports. So any primary source that is available related to your hobby or interest, you have to read them, primary sources. It can be certain UN reports or certain, research articles about that particular thing, or non-fiction books written by famous authors about that particular idea or core interest. You have to read them. And people keep asking me, how should I balance my preparation with interview and prelims or mains with interview? If you ask me, if you completed your papers in mains and before that if you had written so many mock tests, and if you feel that you have done decently well, right? Like for example, you can make a comparison with your performance in mocks and in the real mains. So if you have done slightly better than in your mocks, where you used to score 90, 95 plus marks, you should give 100% of your time to interview preparation, right? So this year I think the result will be out by end of November, or around by November 20, 25th it will be out, and then interview might start, I don't know, what, December last week or January first week. Huh? What? It's not early. So September 5th, when was your
Last exam finished.
20? 25th your exam got over, right? So October, November, I think November end or December first week it will come. Huh? So by November 30 or December 5, like in that range it will come. 65 to 70 days they will take, not more than that. Even if the copies are more, maximum, unless they have some court case or some other issue, I think it will come by maximum December first week. And then by January first week they will, usually this year within 15 days they started. Now they might start in January first week. So January, February, by mid-March, how many days they conduct interview? 60, 65 days? 2.5 months they do. So by mid-March or by March 3rd week, you will be a topper, invited by all the institutions for felicitation, right? So can you do, I mean, assuming in January you are going to give your real interview, or for some it may be in the month of February, you don't have enough time actually, right, to balance between prelims, mains and interview. Any amount of time you have, invest. So by January I think it will be over, January, February it will be over, and then you still have like 3 months for your prelim preparation, not like earlier times where not even 1 week, 10 days was available for prelims. So you don't worry about prelims. So if your written mains, I am sure you can, if you are good in CSAT, you can clear prelims. So don't think too much about prelims. The total focus should be given for interview. Now there is a way forward to score 200 plus, and that happens through two-way process. One is your preparation. Again, the preparation which is driven by curiosity, right, driven by ambition, that you have to be really prepared, in a way that let me ask any question that you are aware of it. If you are not aware of it, you are equally honest in accepting that you don't know about it. Even fraction of your personality is getting affected when you say that you don't know about it, right? So that mindset you have to develop. So there is, the second part is, this happens through mock interviews. So you come and give mock interview. In mock interview, I will identify certain issues in your not personality, in your attitude, right, in your behavior, very less, right, attitude. So that you have to seriously take, and you have to start working on them. And I am more confident than like ever. Like last 2 years I have seen that things have worked for people. But if it gets started early in the process, it will be very convenient for you and me. Like from November 1st, I will be starting mock interviews, right? 1 month or 1.5 months before the actual result. because I know that everyone is not going to clear, the ones who come and give mark, but I take my chances. I believe everyone will clear, right? And you should also have the same faith. And if you genuinely believe that, I mean, not.
So what is the rate of number of people who give the marks but they don't give the interview? It's a small rate of
Very small, very small. So if 10 people are giving, like 2-3 people won't clear, 6-7 people easily clear, right? So the marks give me clarity about, so how to guide you, in which direction to guide you, in which direction to push you, and it should be like not just one mark, it should be more than one mark. So I should have an opportunity to know various dimensions of your personality, right? I'm not as intelligent as UPSC chairman, to judge you in 20 minutes, right? I mean, there are 5 people to judge. So my marks are not intended to judge you, it is to what? To help you actually, to help you improve in various aspects related to the interview. So the things recommended are, you have to make a list of first non-fiction books. If you are not into reading habit and you don't have time, then the related documentaries, right? So can you come up with some hobbies and interests? So ham radio, fundamental analysis, or are you going to use that word, fundamental analysis?
usually there's a technical.
So why do you call it as fundamental analysis?
So there are actually two analyses that happen, technical and fundamental. Some people draw charts and they say the stock is going to up today. That's technical. Fundamental is like Warren Buffett, they keep reading for a long term, they're going to wait that they feel the company has potential and they discover that. That's how you make the long term. You invest in the right.
So you are not investing, you are just reading.
No.
You are investing also.
Yeah, that's skin in the game.
Oh, good. So you have made good amount of money also.
So,
You don't want to reveal in the public, okay? But why did you ask discount? Just kidding. So what about you? Madhu? What was your interest, hobby last time? You don't remember? Cricket. See, for God's sake, don't put cricket, badminton, cooking, traveling, trekking, right? Watching web series, watching TV series. Huh? So, boxing you can definitely put, but I don't know what kind of question they will ask.
Actually, in lockdown, there was gyms and everything was closed, so I started going for boxing with Stand Back,
Okay.
watching YouTube videos and
Hmm.
got some interest on that.
Okay. See now, there are 5 members. How many of them have done the boxing? How many of them are interested in boxing?
Just like 2-3 hobbies are there.
No, you can mention definitely. I am not asking about not to mention. It's definitely. So there is nothing wrong in mentioning cricket or anything, but the problem of plenty, most of the people mention these things and they don't end up not asking any question on them. So they are also humans, right? I mean, they have to, how many questions they will invent? And if I ask you some questions on cricket, I don't like to repeat the same question to another candidate. Not because you will tell him the question, because my own self, right? So doesn't feel like asking the same question. So we need diversity. So something unique about you compared to all other candidates who are giving interview. So that uniqueness, if it is evident, but again, see this. I mean, don't get discouraged that you don't have. There are 2 kinds of people here. One kind of people, you have all the things and you will talk about them because you pursue them. There is another type. They do not have such kind of hobbies, but still they can talk about anything, right? You can still impress them, but these chances of impressing them, you don't get the scope, you don't get the chance to do that. The questions revolve around random, Russia-Ukraine crisis, this and that. Even if you want to impress, it is mostly through factual knowledge, right? So the best bet is to put 2 to 3 keywords which instantly catches their attention, and from there start the conversation. So seriously think about these things.
So actually, my hobby is quizzing.
Hmm.
But is it dangerous to do quizzing?
No, not dangerous.
But then quizzing, there is no end for what can be asked.
No, they won't ask any quiz questions. No.
Oh, that's just as a hobby.
It is just your hobby. They will never ask a single quiz question in the interview.
Because I thought the world is the limit and they can ask anything.
No. So what is the height of Eiffel Tower?
I don't know.
I mean, why am I interested in that? Like, I won't ask, right? So if you jump from Burj Khalifa, with what speed you will be falling down? We can cook up any kind of questions, right? So now they don't make any sense. There was this one question, you flew from Bangalore to Delhi, right? So for the interview, how did you come? Through flight, sir. So what is the name of the plane? Right. So every plane has different what?
Airbus, Boeing.
Like Boeing, Air, belong to which company? Plus they have these numbers, no? A300, A200, what? A380, 757, like this. The flight which you came from belongs to which category of planes? Capacity wise, something like that. So the follow-up question was, okay, so can you calculate the distance, from the flight? Is there any difference between that and this? So it was asked to a girl, I don't know what answer she gave. So there was this funny moment, I don't understand. I don't exactly recall, something related to the distance through flight.
As the crow flies.
Huh?
It's called as the crow flies because it's direct. Usually when you go by road, you have to follow the road path. As the crow flies, there's no limit. You can go from one end to another. Maybe.
Okay.
I don't know if they use that.
Yeah, but anyway, they were factual questions, right? So, I mean, when you don't have anything in DAB, the questions can range from anything to anything. So, for which you might be prepared, you may not be prepared. Now, knowledge-wise, anyway, you will prepare. But what happens in the real interview is that totally is a mental game, right? So, it's about your mental strength, your, irrespective of how much you are prepared, that nervousness will be there. Little bit nervousness will be there. So, that is what you have to handle more deftly and more efficiently, right? Without getting nervous, from now onwards to after the result, one day before the interview, 5 minutes before the interview, when you walk inside the interview hall, when you go sit there, right? So there will be moments which will test your nerves. So for that, how will you prepare? Are you already prepared that you are fearless person? Boxing? Are you sure? You have to ask this question, do I have that strength, right, to sit in front of the UPSC board and not get nervous at all? Let them ask any question. So I just answer and come back. How many of you have that confidence?
I think we can practice again. With practice and with mocks.
Definitely, with practice it will come. But now, right now, how many of you have that confidence? Very good. You was. Yeah. You are rich, you will have. You have confidence in this time. No, last time also you had. Very good. So, if the others who don't have that confidence, what will you do? You will prepare. How? What do you think giving mere mocks will give? By talking to unknown person, total strangers, intellectual unknown. So how will you know that he is intellectually unknown? I mean,
Probably we can give some mock interview, that is for sure.
Hmm.
In addition to that, probably we can give interview for a job change or something like that, so that we can.
Of course, the more you expose, the more exposure you get, right? The more experiences you go through, that confidence will be there. So there are various avenues. As he said, talking to strangers, in the sense that basically the people who are well read, well accomplished, So if you can go to them and talk confidently, right? And public speaking skills, like not the skill per se, you can take sessions to students, you can address a gathering, right? But more than these things, this is something about your own preparedness, right? And beyond preparedness, I think honesty will give you that confidence, right? The honesty that like I have nothing to lose, like let them ask anything. If I know, I will answer. If I don't know, I will not answer. Like I don't have anything to lose. I'll just tell it plainly, right? So that honesty is very important here. Now it is not that people are dishonest here. The thing is, people are under the notion that they have to answer every question in the interview, right? So they go with the notion that they have to answer most of the questions, as if every question is allotted certain mark, like in prelims, like in mains. I mean, you don't think consciously, it is subconsciously it is there, that kind of thinking is there, that if you don't answer this question, you feel little bad that you are not able to answer that question, or if you don't answer that question satisfactorily, you feel bad about that, you could have done well, and you allow that question to affect your next answer, right? And then what happens if 3-4 questions are not answered in a series? Sometimes people take a chance, and if that is a total guess, random guess, wild guess, and if that is a wrong answer, then your interview 130s, 140s, right? So even if it is series of, so regarding that we will talk about when the DAF is out, when the result is out, in the interview about all these intricacies. This is just a general session to tell you that mocks we will start, and why in the mocks I will talk about the various nuances, right, when I am sitting in front of you. So even if it is 5-6 questions in a row, if you don't know the answer, it is actually perfectly fine. So your moment will come, there will be one more question in the end, one more question in the middle, where you can actually leave a definite good impression, right? So you have to wait for that moment. So for that, the strong presence of mind is very important. So we don't work on the presence of mind. For example, I cook up a question in that moment and randomly ask, right? How are you receiving that question? So when you get nervous, you are reacting, knowingly, unknowingly, right? Or if you are trying to evade, or if you are trying to murmur something, right? So can you take a pause, can you take a moment, really think hard and come up with a sensible answer, respond in a more constructive way, right? So that ability you should develop, and it should be done in a faster way. So those are the moments that elevate your interview. They know their question is unique. They know that their question is something you haven't expected. And when they know that the question they are asking is unexpected, right, and you do justice to that answer, right. So those are the highest points in your interviews. Secondly, in questions like case studies, where they put you in a role and they will ask you, so if you are in this position, how will you handle this situation? So for most of the candidates, these questions are asked. Again, they are also, so they are at the apex of all these questions, the case study kind of questions, where they are putting you in a role and then they are asking you what kind of decision you will make, what kind of course of action you will take. Anything non-obvious you say, anything more logical, more sensible, more legal, the ethical, practical answer, the one you say in that moment, right, something innovative, done, sure 200 plus, because that is very difficult to do in that moment. So that is why in the beginning I said you have to anticipate those kind of moments, those kind of questions, and be prepared beforehand. Anything that you are going to think in that moment and say should have been thought before and prepared well. So for that, interact with as many people as possible, people who are better than you in every sense, right? People who can make you curious, who make you, what did you say, who can intimidate you, right? Talk to them, and people who can irritate you, talk to them and tolerate them. Be calm, be unirritated, even when you come across those people, right? And let your parents scold you, calm, like, maintain the calm. I mean, practice the calmness in every interaction, in every social situation you come across. So that So your mental state is something like, so there are instances where they have thrown paper, the chairman has walked out, and they turn, they show back to the candidate, and you are writing answer, and everyone looks here and there, and you don't know whom to look and whom to answer, right? So they do intentionally all these dramas. So like for example, there are like many dramas they do. They ask very lengthy question, right? In most of the interviews, for most of the candidates, they do this drama. Like they ask very incoherent, lengthy question, which is mostly their opinion, right? The context of the question and the what they ask in the end will be unrelated, right? So the candidate, who is listening to that question, right, will be unknowingly will be giving up various expressions on his face, right? So the initial expression is that from where did he bring this fellow? Like he cannot even ask simple question, right? So you sometimes that is shown on the face, and the way you receive the question, like you might ask, come again, pardon me sir, like can you repeat the question, right? So you will do certain mistakes where you come across as somebody who is already irritated, or you think more better than the person who has asked you the question. Some nuances will be actually seen by them. So then, and if such thing happens, remember that it is intentional, and anybody who comes to that, they are carefully selected, and they can all speak well, right? They can really ask good questions. So don't even for a fraction of second think that you are better than them. It actually gets revealed on your face, and the subsequent your answer or anything, because you wouldn't have taken that question seriously, right? So it will be reflected in your answer. So you have to listen to such questions with rapt attention, and make sense out of what they are asking. Show utmost respect. Wonderful question it is, right? You haven't understood the question fully, right? But try to make sense of it. The question itself is incoherent, right? So try to, with respect, try to answer something. If you are struggling, they will stop you, right? So that is not disrespect, and then they will move to another question. Instead of you yourself making certain mistake, right? So you have taken the question seriously, and you are trying your best to answer. So you may not be answering, and then you can give up. That is okay. And if the question is not at all clear, like you can respectfully ask them. So sorry sir, I was not able to understand, like get the last part of the question. If you don't mind, can you repeat or something? Again with this utmost respect towards them, you should ask. So they come with egos, so much ego will be there in them, and some of them will be arrogant, and most of the interview in a way is satisfying their ego also, right? So you should be mindful of that. They expect you to respect them. Nowadays, not only respect them, respect the dead people also. So you have to say Gurudev Rabindranath Tagore, right? You have to say Mahatma Gandhi ji. You have to. So then, so then accept. Sorry sir, I don't know the answer to this question. It was a lengthy question or what? No. So, what about your marks? Good only. 100 out of 150. So what is the percentage? 60? So not very bad also, like average mark, 66%. Right. So okay. You are second time then also. Okay. 160 out of this time 275. So 160 is something favorite number. So neither acceptance nor rejection, in a way subtle rejection, right? So you are clueless, like where I went wrong. You keep thinking whether I entered wrong, whether I put my right leg or left leg in the whether I made sound while pulling the chair, right? Whether I didn't push back the chair while coming back, whether I didn't address one of the ma'ams who was sitting there, whether I didn't look into everyone's eyes while answering the question. So you keep analyzing what went wrong, right? So that is intentional. Then in the second time you would have just accepted, like you don't know the answer. That is satisfying their ego, right? When you say you don't know, what happens? They are happy, right? No, you think they are unhappy, you don't know. Like when you say unhappy in interview, they are actually happy. So, but we are trained in such a way that we have to answer every question. So we think that if you don't answer, they will get angry because they are giving marks. So it is not like that. No, it is not your general knowledge which is being tested there. So
what about politically sensitive?
So you have to avoid. Avoid in the sense that you have to be neutral in those kind of questions. If it is like too directly politics related question, so you should either not answer, say don't know, or you should respectfully evade the answer.
So on things like freebies and reservations, like two sides are there.
What?
Freebies and reservations.
That you can objectively give. In an academic way you can give, right? So you have to be smart here. Like one you can in those kind of questions you give more objectively both sides of the argument, and maybe you can bring. Ideally, you should not mention any report or any author or any expert, anything in your answer. Maybe in those kind of questions, not to give your own opinion, maybe you can say that something like that. So that is a subtle way of telling. In the rest of the interview, you are not doing that. In that answer, if you are doing that, I will know that why you are doing that, right? One member will ask like 4 or 5 questions, right? I mean, that is like last resort when you don't have anything to offer in other things. Then they will ask some random questions. The same question which is there, the transcript. If you mechanical, they have standard set of questions. For mechanical student, they will ask questions from automobile, aerospace engineering. They will ask laws of thermodynamics, how automatic transmission works, right? Or some random questions. Civil engineering, they have like some set of standard questions. Again, your answer to these questions depends the follow-up question. If you are well versed in the subject and if you have the depth in these answers, I think the questions will be of similar nature. But don't spend too much time studying your academic subject and even optional subject also. As I said, try to bring the diversity in terms of all the socio-economic cultural issues, the hobbies and interest related issues, right? So that is where the interesting conversation can happen. So what conversation they can have in civil engineering, mechanical engineering, and all these tricky questions, there are answers. Like doing mocks, I will tell. The questions like there is a gap years, between your graduation and your working, you haven't worked, and then you graduated from this big university, and then you didn't go for work or like something like that, and then you are a doctor. Don't you think you have wasted money on this thing? So there are some questions for which there are good answers, individualistic, based on your individual tap. There cannot be a very generic answer to that question. New mains ಬರ್ತಿದ್ದೀರಾ ಇಬ್ರು? What about you? So I think I met you, no? ನಿಮ್ಮನ್ನು ಮೀಟ್ ಮಾಡಿಲ್ಲ. Met you also. Have I met everyone here? But you are first time I am meeting. No, behind you. You also gave mains. Amit. Right. What about you? ಸುಮ್ಮನೆ ಬಂದಿರೋದಾ? Out of curiosity. What about you? Bardra mains? Next year you will be writing. New brother, yeah, right. How was your means? Went well. Somewhat? Assertive, louder? Somewhat okay. So you have to work on that thing. Kannada people. ಇಲ್ಲಿಂದ ಬರಬೇಕು, ಬಾಟಮ್ ಆಫ್ ಸ್ಟಮಕ್ ಇಂದ. ಅದನ್ನು ಕೇಳ್ತಾನಲ್ಲ ಯಾವುದೋ ಮೂವಿ ಜೋಶ್ ಏನಂತ, ಹೌ ಇಸ್ ದ ಜೋಶ್, ರೈಟ್? ಸೊ ದಟ್ ಶುಡ್ ಬಿ ದೇರ್. See, the moment you enter interview room, you should come across as a fresh breath of air for them. You don't know to what extent they are tired of listening to the same stuff, right? They hate their job. That is what people have made this, right? It's very few people who will come with something different to offer, something substantial to offer, make them really feel proud and happy that, finally, it is like, Indian Idol. I mean, the feeling is same. Here they don't do drama and express and everything, but maybe after you walk out in that window period of 5 minutes before another candidate is enters, so I think they will have celebrated also in a very their own academic way, right? So that, wow, what a candidate we got, something like that, right? So it happens to me, right? That I tell you in front of you only here, right? There they won't tell you in front of you. So that is the ambition you should have in your thinking. So when you go there, you should be that change that they want to see on that particular session on that particular day, right? So for that, ambition is important. I mean, you have to prepare accordingly, and any weakness you have, any deficiency, any loophole in everything, personality to preparation to in your thinking, whatever it is. So try to fill everything. So for that reason, I told it takes the full-time preparation for interview, right? So you have to put efforts. I mean, if it means to traveling to some places, go travel, talk to people, right? If it means taking certain actions, you do that. It can be taking internships, NGO work. It can be teaching assignments, right? Randomly meeting people, just barge into some DC office and try to talk DC, district collectors, and there are humble IAS officers in Bangalore, right, in all different departments. So humble means they are not DCs, so they are humble in Bangalore. So you can go and talk to them. They will give enough time to talk to you. You'll be surprised how much time they will give you in Bangalore, IAS officers, right? When they are DC, you have to be very lucky to meet them. You won't be able to see them. But if you have access to those people, you see them. Maybe you can, if you know somebody familiar, you go with them, go for tours with them, and talk to politicians if you have any opportunities. Politicians have the highest level of confidence, right? Especially if they are in power. So if you can talk to them, observe the level of confidence they have, right? They are like totally fearless. They can talk to anyone, anywhere, anytime, right? That power, it is so. I mean, you will actually sense it. The source of that confidence is nothing but their regular interaction with regular public speaking with thousands of people. So from there it comes. So now that won't come sitting in a room, making notes, preparing things, right? It will never come. You will get the confidence that you know the things, but at the end of the day, to deliver it, to articulate it, so you should have those kind of experiences. Again, mocks alone won't solve the problem also, right? So over the period of time, you will get comfortable in mocks also, right? So mocks, the real interview will be totally different. Irrespective of, some questions get repeated, but the dynamics is totally different, right? So for that, you need to have that kind of exposure. So travel, meet people, talk to people. Don't do this after interview, I mean the result. Even if you start doing it now, even if you don't clear, next year it will be useful. No, they will like it, diversity. You sell it as a diversity. You are a person of diverse interests. From school days, college days, I had the diverse interests. Sir. I always wanted to, study different disciplines. So thankfully, UPSC opened my eyes. So your graduation is in
Electronics and communication engineering.
post graduation
Statistics.
statistics. Okay, then
Option is Canada literature.
okay. Why statistics?
Sir, like that was my plan B. Say suppose if you say excellence at different doesn't work,
Hmm.
you have to go to data science.
This answer you can give. It's a perfectly sensible answer. No. So no, don't think that they will judge you that you had plan B, something. You come across as a practical, honest person here, right? So I think that is a better answer. So then they might ask about data science and what could be the role of data scientist, how it is contributing to something, economy, healthcare, this and that, right? But Kannada literature, why Kannada? That out of interest you can definitely say. They actually appreciate diversity in your DAF. In fact, I tell people there should be something from economy, something from science and tech, something from culture, tradition, something from sports. So combination of 4 or 5 different disciplines, if it is visible in your DAF through certain keywords. What were your hobbies? Huh? Cooking. Please avoid. I mean, you can write in addition to cooking, you cook up something else. So right. So all this cooking, jogging, trekking. Huh? See, you are a swimmer. I know, like you have won awards also, gold medal. Huh? But how long I can have a conversation on that? So I can ask technical question, right? I mean, any question I will ask will be more factual question. Whether it is swimming or boxing. 1 or 2 questions they will ask, and then what? What about other 4 members? And that will last for 2 to 3 minutes, the conversation. So still we have to have conversation for another 20-25 minutes. So we have to talk about something, no? Put swimming, it's okay. I mean, that shows some that you are a sports person who is interested in fitness and all. But beyond that, you should have something.
So what about really generic ones like interest in area of it's really generic about
So that many people put, again, in my opinion, it should be more specific than that.
can we put a niche topic in that like interest in at least
No, that will be too specific, but again, you should have like really good depth in that, right? They will ask very deep questions on that if you are going into that much specific.
So what about yes, radical? Radical in the sense most people.
Before that, like again, you should be consistent with your answers throughout the interview, and your DAF, your other expo, like activities, extracurricular. If it is PSI or optional, and if you are mentioning that, it is gone. Right.
Sir, like
Radical
last
views.
question, Yeah,
Hmm.
radical in the sense it's fine. I have backing, but most people don't agree. Like, how can you tell that? Or some, let's say it's not radical, abolishing the planning commission. If I told it 20 years ago, they're like, what are you telling? That's a very big thing. Now it's obvious, but
No, abolishing Niti Ayog, no.
like, I feel states don't have say in that. Let's say something like we should abolish or there should be lesser bureaucracy when I'm applying for a bureaucratic role. Can I go and tell them?
You can say that. So that is what maximum governance, minimum government is all about, right? Extinguishing redundant institutions.
Or some forms, I don't want all these, so many forms. and all.
Those things you can say. I mean, that is the people like you are selected now.
what results you found out when you are saying that okay some toppers have got only 165 or 160. What might be the reason behind it as per your analysis?
Mediocre answers. So there is no takeaways from your answers. Your answers are obvious, expected. You are not at all offering anything new. So it is always 160 to 170 range. 1 or 2 answer might have evoked little interest. Otherwise, all the answers, there is nothing new in your answer, right? So it is expected you have done justice, but there is nothing new in your answers. There is some dishonesty, there is some melting down kind of moments, nervous and all. 140 to 150. Dishonesty 120, 130 in some form. Right. So 160, 165 like below average answers, and which is focused only on the knowledge component. So you just look at the question, they actually give chances to those kind of students. They will come up with a situational question, they will come up with some 1 or 2 broad questions also. So even there, if you are not doing any justice, I think so around 160 will get. So if you do justice to those questions, till then they might have thought okay 160 something, but definitely they will change their opinion and it can be 175 plus or 180 plus for sure. So that is what I meant, you have to wait for your moment, opportunity. So they have again one of the drama, like in the end they will ask, do you have anything to tell? Do you have anything to share? In the end, what will you do?
Yes, of course.
No, what will you do? Now your interview is over, like I'll tell you, the chairman. So yes, I had a pleasant conversation with you. You seem to be intelligent, wonderful. So do you have anything else to share?
So if there was freedom, I don't know what's the right answer. I'd be like, thank you for giving me the opportunity. I had a very intellectually stimulating discussion. I learned a lot. I learned a lot of things I don't know. And I said, is that is it a little too much? Or is it okay?
The last line is not required. Again, I will ask, like, what did you learn?
No, from the questions I can.
No, like they have just asked the question. They haven't given you any answers, right? For you to learn. Of course, you learned in terms of right. But again, when you say there are a lot of things I learned, I didn't know.
Like when the things I said I don't know, I can go home and.
Supposed to be a quiz champion, you should have known all the things. So, thank you. I had a good conversation with you, sir. Again, better to avoid the exaggerated words and yes. Yeah. So you can say I had a very good conversation with you. Thanks for the opportunity, sir. Nothing else to say. Something like this.
What kind of prizes or awards that can be put in the
Like what kind of prizes and awards you have? Example?
Like I've won competition at national level.
Anything national level. It can be anything. Any competition you can mention.
Until what age, sir?
Any age, from class standard 1 to right now. Yes, but it doesn't mention the age, no? College, national level, state level, university level, it says. University level when you are in the university level. State level, national level, it can be when you are in the 3rd standard, 4th standard. For example, 5th standard, you would have done a science model that went till national or international level. That you can mention. Right. So achievement certificates, it should be again something show that you have been academically brilliant, extracurricular wise you are good, sound in science, math. The people have done international Olympiad in math, science. So all those things can be mentioned. Mention Bharatanatyam junior level. 2000? It's okay, you can mention. You can mention. So those are something that you don't do every day or like every week or every month, right? It's okay, but you know the art, right? That is important. Mm-hmm. Mm. Put it bold letters. Mention in bold letters. Speaking Sanskrit. Having like how do you put it? Conversing in Sanskrit. You can put it hobby or interest. If it is UPSC chairman's board, you will be very happy. No, they actually love the fact that you are preserving, protecting, furthering our tradition, culture. Sanskrit is at the core of all these things. Hmm. No, that is not important. Like, there is difference between that and this, right? So you tell them. I know conversational Sanskrit because I did for 6 years in the Gurukul. So, like I can have a conversation with you also, sir. But if they ask what is the meaning of this and that, you can tell. Right? I don't know the meaning of that, sir, but I can try my best or something like that. See, honesty is the best policy. Right?
Writing poems or stories.
You should write poems, but ensure and make sure that you also read poetry. So there was this question by, somebody, a girl had written writing poetry. So then asked, do you read the poems? So no, sir. Do you know any famous poet? No, sir. Any poetry, anthology, compilation? Have you read any? No, sir. So there are people like that. No, you don't read poetry, but you think you are a poet. You keep writing. You look at the sun. You look at the Jupiter next to moon. So you write poetry about that, right? But that is not their expectation. I am talking from their expectation, right? So if at all you are writing poetry, it should be a serious affair. You know about the trends in poetry, the world, in India, what is happening, the various forms of poetry, right? Different authors, the different poets who have won the Nobel Prize, poets who have won the highest awards in the what kind of works, some of the poems you have to recite. Did they have any kind of influence on your poetry, right? So that is the expectation. Now I cannot ask you to just randomly recite one poem, and people, by heart 1 or 2 poems. I have seen that in the mock interviews. 1 or 2 their favorite poem, and they recite it, and they may be good or bad, but for me that is not more important. I know if they have mentioned poetry, they are going to memorize 1 or 2 poems. So you can put again, because most of the people put watching movies, they end up not asking any question on watching movies. But within that, if you put something like watching Japanese movies or some kind of award-winning movies, there is some kind of any interest-evoking kind of genre in that. If that you are mentioning, maybe out of curiosity, definitely I will ask some question. And if your answer is again substantial, if it is good, thought-provoking, from there it can lead to another conversation. Podcasting case studies. What is case studies? So watching them, watching podcast and watching case studies. The case studies related to? You mentioned the category. Podcast also should mention the category because each will have a category. So similarly, case studies related to business or whatever it is. Right. For example? See, 100% of the answer should be pro-government. Now it is not controversial anymore, no, if the government. Like controversial from whose viewpoint? Who has made it controversial? But within government there won't be any controversy, right? So it is not a controversial issue. Go with the government view. So follow the formula. So for example, repeal of farm laws. So was it good that the government repealed farm laws? So you're like going with the pro-government has 2 dimensions. One, the government itself brought the laws, which were kind of progressive, in a way revolutionary. Again, you may say anti-farmer or whatever it is, but more progressive, like in terms of bringing more private capital, bringing more market forces, right, making it more remunerative in that sense. So you have to support the government here. So it was a progressive law which shouldn't have been repealed. You are supporting the government here.
So repealing was, let's say, I strongly believe it's a politicization. Can I tell that?
Now don't use the word politics.
But then I should, like, in my main answer, how I read it was, consultation was one. I mean, that's the answer which we gave. But, sir, let's
No, even in interview, don't mention that. So there was no proper discussion, deliberation, consultation between different stakeholders. So don't mention all those things.
But then, how do I justify why it was repealed?
Why it was repealed? So it was vested interest, and so I believe, sir, like I'm not very sure. I think certain vested interest, which is unfortunate, it shouldn't have been repealed or something. So in a very subtle way, you put it and end the answer. Like don't drag it, don't give too many details in the answer.
What about sports? Like, I haven't played any sport, but I play cricket. Can you that in the
Where do you play cricket? So mention gully cricket. You need courage to mention gully cricket. It's still a hobby, right? I mean, if you're playing regularly, how many of us play? Like, not many. So gully cricket, I think that makes more sense than just mentioning cricket, giving the impression that, you know, you wear all the pads and other things. So,
Normal answer, but with good communication skill. So does it normal answer with good communication skill or better?
no. Here, good communication skill doesn't have any impact here. It can be broken English, poor English, but the substance matters more than your language proficiency here. But if both are good, it is sure shot.
But
Otherwise, like, you know, you might get 5 marks less than you deserve, but still they value your, I mean, so they are very mature individuals, and they have interacted with similar kind of people, even in academics. You know, when somebody comes from Israel or somebody comes from German, they won't use very good English, right? Still they know that they are so much achieved, accomplished people. So they know that there is value in your answer. So focus on the value factor more than the communication factor. Yes. So, but again, you should within the minimum English or whatever English you know, you should practice to give substantial answer using that much English only. So some people take it as, you know, a negative thing, you know, because they don't know very good English. So they end up, you know, getting more conscious about the language and less focused on the content of the answer. So they keep worrying, my English is not good, I may not be communicating properly. So the content takes a back seat. So I used Kannada word in my interview. In UPSC interview, I didn't mention Kannada medium or anything. At least in 3 answers I used, it came out, and I didn't know word. Certain, even now in classes I ask, if I don't know the word, what is the word? You know, I ask this, you know, the Bishop Cotton students, English medium students, just honesty, right? So they were able to understand the answer even then. So I had scored 210 marks, only one interview I gave, 210 marks out of 300, equal to 193 now. But at that time, it was very rare, they used to give 200 plus even then. So like in the entire, there used to be like 1,200 posts, you would see 20-25 people getting 200 plus in the entire list. Right. So now like between 2016 and 2020, it became more like 21 also, 20. More and more people started getting 200 plus. In 21 again, it came down drastically. Only 13 people in top 100. Before that, 26 people were there in top 100 who scored 200 plus. So last year in the entire list, around 20 odd people who got 200 plus. It was like more than 60, I think, in the entire list before that. Any other doubts here?
Can you mention folk dance like Gurukha?
Yes, you can mention. So is Kantara dance a folk dance? Kola? Huh? Kola. Is it a folk dance or is it just like devotional stuff? Hmm? It's more than like expression of bhakti, devotion. Spiritual? It's called Kola Kunita or only Kola? Kola or Kola? Kola. Okay. Then doubt ilva? Right. You should mention the name of the project. What was it about? The name you had for the project, you should mention it. So then they will ask questions on that. If it is interesting, even then they will usually ask questions. Like they won't ask like HR kind of questions here, like what mistakes you did, what did you learn from those mistakes. So those questions they usually avoid. So basically, like in a way, from the nature of your job, they will get into the issue. If you have worked in Amazon, for example, right, or in Google, so the questions will get into the technology, their impact on the society, right, and in general about the work culture, right. How do you improve? Like if you are the CEO of the company today, how do you like to improve the work culture further? And regarding their investments, those kind of one or two factual. Like there are questions. The market cap of those companies was asked. So you should in the preparation wise, which we will talk about later in the next session. So you should start from. There are like 3 level questions. One is purely factual question. So which doesn't hold any significance in the interview. You can just say you don't know. It can be related to your graduation subject, optional, anything. Purely factual question, right? So don't focus too much on that. The second level is opinion based questions. So let's say you mentioned ham radio. The factual question is very simple question. I can ask, who invented the radio? Right? Was this Jagdish Chandra Bose or Marconi?
Oh, that's the opinion based.
So the next is the opinion question, right? So now you might say Marconi, right? Guglielmo Marconi. Yeah. So now, so do you think Jagdish Chandra Bose, right? JC Bose. So people believe that, some people say that he actually invented the radio. Is it true? Like, what do you think? So slightly opinion based question, right? And then another opinion based question, do you think the importance of radio is decreased or diminished in the light of all these TV and all these OTT platforms and other things? So what is the cultural significance of radio, right? Something like this. Now I'll come to ham radio, right? So how are you making use of it, right? For what purpose you are making use of it? So do you think you can use that in the administration for some purposes? Can we formalize that ham radio in something like, right? And then the next is the situational question. So using that, I'll ask a situational question. I'll put you in a particular, like same disaster situation or something, and then I will ask. I'll give you a case. So where you have to solve ethical dilemma or So these 3 level questions for any keyword that is there in your DAF or any keyword that you come across in your answer. I mean, you give knowingly or unknowingly in your answer. For them, you should be ready for these 3 level of questions. You can mention that, right? Following psephology. What do you call that? Following, how do you pronounce? Psephology? P is not silent here. Yeah, P is not silent here. Psephology. Yogendra Yadav and all, psephologist they say. PSEPHOLO, GY. You can mention that. Huh? Yeah, you should say it should be given, and then give 2 to 3 really strong arguments in favor of it. So those are, there is no counter argument. There are certain things. So any question related to vulnerable sections, any question trying to do social justice to vulnerable section, I think, so there is always one clear stand. Like in the Karnataka now, they have increased reservation for SC, ST now. So there might be a question in the interview. If you go from Karnataka,
Reaches the 50% mark, it's another controversy.
there are precedents, right? In
Tamil Nadu.
so you can give that answer. So it is a welcome move. I mean, you have to say it's a welcome move, and then give justification why it is a welcome move, and then you have to talk about the technical problems in its implementation, other things.
Since I am living in Karnataka since last 6 years now,
Hmm.
but I don't know Kannada. So, do they ask question regarding that or?
They will ask, but it is insignificant. It's okay not to learn Kannada, not to speak Kannada.
That is fine, right? I have to learn this.
So it's about individual aptitude, right? I mean, for example, even if I say, like, even if I go and stay 5 years in Tamil Nadu, I won't learn Tamil. No, even in Andhra Pradesh also. No, Andhra, I mean Telugu. Believe me, I know Hindi, English, Kannada because school education. We had to learn. The Hindi by compulsion again. I mean, sorry. So Hindi, Navodaya school, it was there as a subject. So we had to learn. We used to skip Hindi classes. We never understood Hindi poems, dohas, and other things. So because there were people coming, for migration from Madhya Pradesh, 1 year students used to come and live in Karnataka school. So we had to interact with them. So eventually learned Hindi because you had to interact with them. You were living in small, hostels. So, but I don't have that. You can say ability or aptitude to learn new languages. So I think they will know it. Okay.
So, I mean, what kind of excuse basically we can give? Was it your time or you
No, don't give any excuses. Like you can just say ki, so most of my social interaction happened only in Hindi and Kannada with most of the people. Now and then definitely I thought about it, but I end up not learning the language. So you can just say something like, so no need to give any excuses. So in these interviews, you should never give any justification, any excuses, any defensive answers, right? So just plainly tell what it is. So we'll wind up. So from November first week, we'll start mock interviews. Anybody who has written means can come and start taking the mock interviews. So morning to evening, I'll be doing these mock interviews on a regular basis, right? So those who really have given very good mains, start early. It definitely helps. So I am not the person who will say ki I'll get you 200 plus. No. So we'll put our best efforts. So I will guide to the best of my ability to tell you where you can improve. So in that regard, I can claim myself, I have evolved myself in identifying your issues and telling the solutions also, how you can improve. So if you work on them, definitely yields result. But in this competition, what we see is that when somebody comes as a fresher and joins here, so if I tell a class of 200 people, 5 people will follow that, right? So after prelims, those who clear, if 100 people are writing mains, if I tell that audience, at least 30-40% will actually follow that. So they are a little bit more serious. And in this interview guidance, is more number of people actually follow it, right? So, but if everybody follows, and you should not give up. I mean, you are almost on the verge of getting rank in 3 months, next 5 months, right? So then ending the journey. So if I am in your position today, and if I am satisfied that the mains has gone well. See, unlike us, you have tools to compare, know that whether you did well or not in mains. the test series and our feedback, whatever. So if you're happy that to that level, if you have done justice in your answers and essays, you should feel confident that you are going to clear mains, right? So once you have that little confidence, absolutely give everything you have, so don't leave no stone unturned, don't leave anything to chance. Prepare, get 200 plus, rank is guaranteed, right? So wish you all the best. Thank you. Met in this discussion that you wanted to hear something, any aspect of the interview. So as I said, it was more like warming up session today, right? Because everyone is going to start mock interviews. Earlier nobody would start. Everyone would start only after the result. Again, I have started this culture here, right? Since 4 years I am doing this. Like before the result, and now everybody wants to catch more number of you people, and then claim more results. So we should be in the competition here, right? So I have a target of doing 500 candidates this year. This was a good session.
Such kind of sessions, but I was not sure whether you will be conducting before result or not. So looking forward to
No, I do this every year, not now. I am like jobless after. So I like talking to people. Asking question is very easy job, right? And I kind of ask decent questions, and I totally focus on your DAF. The reason is I don't know any current affairs. So I ask questions related to your DAF, your hobbies, interest, and I am innately very curious individual, right? So I put my curiosity at the forefront, to know more about you, to extract more from you. So in a way, I make you think on the spot really well because of my curiosity. So that provides you mental exercise for you. So that is where I am basically one-on-one person, right? All these public sessions, just like warm-up sessions. So when you come alone and start having mock interviews, so then we will have fun there. Okay. So all the best. Thank you.